In this video, let's go over some starter tips for Wargame Red Dragon, and many thanks to Daniel who posted in the comments section of my previous video some of these tips, and he's made some very good observations from his many hours playing. Before I go any further, just for a change I'm going to put this at the start of the video as well. Please leave any tips you have yourselves down in the comments below, and any feedback, both positive and negative, is really appreciated as it does help the channel to grow. And you know, there's a subscribe button down there too. So let's split this into sections. First, let's talk about decks. So tip 1. Don't use specialized decks if you are new. By this I mean the armor, motorized and airborne decks. And then don't choose 1985 or 1980 because you cut yourself off from a lot of good units for very little benefit. Tip number 2. Opt for coalition decks if you can. As Daniel said, he's noticed a lot of new players using German or French decks, for example, and while you may lose some activation points using the coalition decks, which means you get less units in a deck, it does mean you have a bigger variety of units to play with. Tip number 3. Play one deck and get used to it, and used to the game rather than switching often, so you can learn strategies for that deck. Tip number 4. Everyone plays differently and likes different unit types or strategies, so don't copy other people's decks directly. Adjust them to your taste. Everyone has their views on a particular unit, and some will be good of that and some will be bad of that unit. You need to decide for yourself whether you like the unit or not. 5. A more balanced deck is a good place to start so you get used to all the different unit types, and therefore used to the game, rather than focusing heavily on infantry, for example. This will also give you an understanding of what people are going to use against you. Tip number 6. Make sure you have plenty of command vehicles. 5 or 6 in a deck is probably a sensible idea, because people are going to go out of their way to destroy them, and you don't want to get caught out unable to cap a very important point. Tip number 7. Once you're a bit further on and planning to play online mainly with friends, then consider working together to organise your decks so that they complement each other while still playing to your own personal strengths. Now let's talk about some general gameplay tips. Tip number 1. The AI are very good for learning the basics, but as with any RTS game, they have flaws and they're easily exploitable up to a certain point, so you won't learn how to beat real people. Tip number 2. If you want to take the game more seriously, look for someone to teach you the game, be that in multiplayer or via tutorials online or YouTube videos. There are almost 2,000 units in Wargame Red Dragon, thus it can be a bit overwhelming to start with. The community has been small over the years, but there are a lot of really supportive players who pull up a lot of good guides. Tip number 3. Like many RTS games, you can use shift-click to queue orders. This can be used to send, for example, an empty truck to an FOB to reload it, and then shift-click it back to the front line, and it will do that all automatically. Then you can also use it on things like artillery. Tell them to fire a salvo, then move, then fire another salvo, then move, and this will limit them getting destroyed by counter-artillery fire. It can also be used, for example, to unload troops at the front lines. Tip number 4. Line of sight is really important in this game. So, for example, with infantry, be very sensible about where you put them. Make sure if you put long-range missile troops in a town, it's at the edge of the town, because if they're in the middle, they won't be able to see past the other buildings. And similarly, if you're putting them in a tree line, make sure there's a big space between them and the next set of trees, otherwise they're wasted. Equally, you can place anti-air troops in the middle of a town because they're going to be able to see 360 degrees around them. Tip number 5. Scouting can make or break a game. Using recon units in good positions so you can see what the enemy is about to throw at you. This is about giving you time to react and move units to safety if necessary. And don't forget, they might try and circle around behind you, so don't just cover your front lines. Tip number 6. When you're advancing, pay attention to where the enemy can bring in reinforcements. If you are attacking a zone with the intention of taking it, be aware that there could be a spawn point behind that zone, and therefore you could end up with a load of units spawning right behind you and destroying your advancing forces. Tip number 7. Don't leave your command vehicles undefended, even in your starting zone. The enemy will try to destroy them. I've myself gone out of my way to send squads of infantry on a 20-minute trek behind someone else's base in the tree line to take out their CV and cost them the game. Even cheap units as an early warning system can give you time to either move the CV or get more units there to protect it. And my final tip for this video, and perhaps the most important, as I said in my previous video, the most fun you can have in this game is by playing with friends, be that against each other or working as a team against other players. It is so much more fun playing with friends than just having random players on your team, because due to the way the game is designed, a single player not pulling their weight can cost you the game, and that's just no fun. Finally, welcome to all the new people who are probably just joining and playing this game for the first time. I really hope you enjoy it. It is a fantastic game. Please put comments down below. Do you have any tips yourselves? Plus, any positive or negative feedback for my videos is greatly appreciated and it helps my channel grow. As always, please like, share and subscribe, and stay tuned for more Wargame videos. Have an awesome weekend.